What up? Yeah, it's super late. Well, I guess depending on when you watch it, you wouldn't know how late it is. It's 2 a.m. I'm trying to get myself to stick to a new schedule where I put out the challenge episode of the show on Mondays. Because new episodes air on Wednesdays, so I try and get those, try and get that taken care of, and try to get myself back on track where I do the challenge show on Monday, the NFL recap on Wednesday, and then get back to actually doing like the general podcast that talks about all the sports, not just the challenge. God fucking damn it, dude. I never mind. One day I'll figure it out. Anyway, sound check on Twitch confirmed. Just finished watching. Well, not just, but definitely was watching that wild ass Monday Night Football game, and just can't get over the number of trolls that are on the internet. Like at any given fucking time when it comes to this. Hold on a second, man. I gotta switch to. It keeps revealing one of the slides, so I'm gonna switch to the starting thing. One person chatted in my last stream. Did they? I don't even know who that was. Anyway, we trying to get it together, man. Trying to get more people in the stream. Starting the show at 2 a.m. is probably not the best. Oh, I get it. Stream elements counts. We have stream elements on the show now, by the way. Don't have shout out to my boy BB_smooth, one of the biggest dudes on Twitch, or getting close to it. I think he's got like 11,000 followers and a bunch of subscribers and shit like that. Like he does this full time. So I'm trying to get like him so that I can stop having to be an adult, because it fucking sucks. And based off what I see from other Twitch streamers that are like really popular, I think I have the skills to make it happen, folks. But that could be quite bold of me to assume. Anyway, our biggest objective right now is, of course, getting to that magical number of an average of 3 people in the chat constantly. And the only way that's going to happen is if I start putting myself on a regular schedule, which is going to be hard. But we're going to make it happen. Here we go. I have to drive to Galveston, Texas tomorrow, which is an hour away from where I live, but still might be super annoying. The challenge only episode of the Baroque Boy Sports podcast is live. Oops, sorry. Hopefully that wasn't somebody knocking on my door just now. That would be really creepy. Where's my Twitch stream? There it is. Control C. Yo. If you're out there in the mythical world of Twitch, let me know what the deal is, bro. Tell me what you think about this show starting here in a little bit. Creator dashboard open on 2 different tabs. What a world. What a time. Oh, look at that. Popped up on my own YouTube feed instantly. We love that. We love to see that. Anyway, tell me what you thought of episode 5. Episode 5 just aired a couple days ago. And honestly, I just need to start doing this show like immediately after on Wednesdays. But I already have things to do on Wednesday. But I feel like you got to strike while the iron's hot. Like only having 2 days to get this show like distributed and find clips and stuff like that is probably not the best for the health of the show. But we'll find out here in a second. I'm slowly but surely finding out more people in my life enjoy this show. Let me see if it's copied. Nope, it's just YouTube. Don't know why I did that. Yo, I think I talked about this on the NFL recap show. Your boy has been slightly hooked on NXL paintballing. again. I used to watch it a lot when I was a kid, when it was on ESPN2 all the time, but they stopped airing it, and then, life happened and stuff like that. Didn't keep up with it. Didn't have, the best access to the internet until I really got to, maybe 8th grade or whatever. So, couldn't watch it online. And then on top of that, being online wasn't a thing. I go to YouTube almost every single day now, and that's just that. At the time that I was a kid, that just wasn't a thing. YouTube was in its burgeoning existence, and Justin Bieber hadn't popped off yet. So, he was a huge deal on YouTube because he's probably the most iconic YouTube star, right? Scooter Braun, who, little did we know, was a piece of work there, would eventually road to affiliate. Little did we know, Scooter Braun would become not pioneering force, because what he's done is actually not even that creative. He's just stealing music he's just jacking music from people. Anyway, he's just jacking music from great artists and cashing in on it. You know what I mean? So that people have been doing that since the beginning of time, especially to black artists and stuff like that. So really any type of artist, because guess what? Usually the kind of people who are okay doing that usually only care about one color, and it ain't black. But black people are easy to abuse, mainly because of educational inequalities that were manufactured by groups of people. So there's your one history lesson for the day, kids. We'll not be further discussing that anymore. If you really are interested in it, if you're really interested in it, you should talk about yourself. You should learn yourself. You know what I mean? I believe in you. I got you, bro. Anyway, let's get it popping, man. Let's get the show popping off here real quick before we lose any person that potentially was listening in retroactively. Sorry, I had to get the social media stuff done, and the link is only live on YouTube when I do it live. Anyway, going live I almost clicked the wrong song. I forget. We get to use my favorite song, not my second favorite song that Christina Gukas has made for the show. Going live in 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and everybody else in between, I'm Ashton Gene Lewis. This is the challenge-only version of the Broke Boy Sports Podcast. We got a lot to get through. If you've not been tuned in the last couple of weeks, we are following live every single week. We recap the episode of MTV's The Challenge, which I, in my mind, consider a pseudo sport. Because although there are, the results are basically predetermined, which, by the way, a little bit better than some of the things that are going on in professional sports. Man, I read this crazy ass article today about how coaches and fighters are betting on the fights that they're not participating in, which that's what they say in the article, but they're fucking betting on the fights that they're fighting in, right? Trying to get that extra bonus, betting on you to win your own fight. Yeah. Anyway, that being said, a couple of things that are going to go down. We got everything. It was just wild to think about because, it's deceptive in a certain way because it would be like NFL players betting on games, which is absurd. Even if every single one of your bets is for you to win, there's a billion other things that you can bet on that are prop bets and stuff like that. We are going to talk about The Challenge, episode 5, and it has it has the worst title for an episode this season. Get Rich or Ride or Die Tryin', which is obviously in reference to 50 Cent's Get Rich or Die Tryin', which also was a movie, because all of the episodes so far have been movie based. So Yeah, no, that's hold on a second here, I gotta fix something off screen. Yeah, so they did that. It is 100% the worst title for an episode so far. So we dive right into it. Let's start with number 1. The Arrival. If you haven't checked out the show before, each segment, basically we go through the episode and break it out into these different segments. They all start with the, and then have something else after them. The first one is The Arrival, which typically was very fitting for the first, 3 episodes when they were introducing the heavy hitters, which are the partner pairs that get added in after somebody gets eliminated, and they're supposed to be superstar veteran players that get added into the game. As we see, one of those pairs is getting abused almost instantaneously inside the house, which I'm sure production is really happy about. The Arrival, here's a breakdown of what's going down in the house in terms of like a couple of things, in particular, the way the pairs break out. So if you're not familiar with the challenge at all, I'll explain this. There are people who have been on the challenge for multiple years, in years past. There have been people who've been on the challenge for almost as long as I've been alive, which is crazy to think about. Because Veronica, who was one of the people on the challenge, she got added in a couple episodes ago. She was on the first Road Rules in 1999. I was born in 1992. That's pretty damn close in terms of like my entire life. Most of my life she's been on TV. She hasn't been on every single episode, every single season of the challenge, but she's been on a lot of seasons and done a lot in this game. The way the pairs are broken out in this explanation is there are rookies, people who are on the show for the first time, just like in sports, and then there are veterans who have been on the show for more than one season, or at least one season. And then there are people, because this season's theme is the ride or die concept, which means that the people who are typically on the show, well, everybody gets to bring a partner, and they get to select who their partner is for the most part. Some of these partners were put together by production, and I'm sure that's going to factor in a little bit later on, but because I still believe that there's a twist coming where you can switch partners out. And that's when it's really going to get messy, because people are going to have to betray their friends, even more so than they already do when they send people into an elimination. I just listened to a clip of like Jay, who's still really salty about the first time that he got sent into an elimination, which shouldn't have been surprising. His rookie season, he was like, he was a rookie. So like they go for rookies immediately, but hey, but yeah, these are the pair breakdowns currently in the house before episodes 5 elimination, which of course will change all these numbers. There are 2 rookie pairs left. It's Olivia and Horacio, and who's the other one? Oh, Kim and Colleen. There are 5 vet pairs, so like all the veterans in the house. I'm not going to list all those off. They're the people that you've come to know. We'll talk about actually what the damage has been 5 episodes into the season, like who's actually being eliminated, because there's some streaks for me that are obviously terrible and obviously in relation to things that have happened in years past. There are 5 mixed vet rookie pairs. I will point out these mixed vet rookie pairs are the friends of the veterans on the show, so they're just gonna go along in terms of like the social clout that each one of the vets has. They're just gonna go along with that, right? Like they're going along with the alliance that the veteran person who communicates with all the other people on the challenge who they've competed against for years has gone with. They're not really trying to deviate from that system, at least not yet. At some point they will have to by the structure of the game, but so far they're able to ride the veteran alliance out all the way to the end of the rails, which at some point, the tracks are going to deviate left or right, and you're going to have to make a choice, and it's not going to be fun. So we talk about the things that happened in the beginning of the show this time around. The Alliance stuff, we're fresh off of Nelson, Scuba Nelly T, concocting, executing, and completing his ultimate master plan. Hold on a second. There's one thing that's going on, and it's kind of annoying the hell out of me. Anyway, Nelson pulls off his mastermind plan to send in his precious Olivia into the zone to deceive all the other vets, right? To make sure that the vets understand that he's trying to do everything he can to stick to the plan and not be, not set up the initial shot where the veterans have to go up against each other, because I think Nelson, because of his connection to Fessy, may or may not believe that they really have the upper hand on the other veteran alliance, which is getting a little murky in terms of like who's really with who, right? Anyway, that being said, the alliances kind of influenced that situation. Nelson, fresh off the dub, hanging out, all that kind of jazz like that. The saddest elimination in challenge history is officially over, where Tommy literally couldn't even get them into a position to possibly even compete in this challenge. Alliances are revealed a little bit more because people are starting to, like, I'm wondering how much, because people are calling it politicking, which is the thing where you use like a romantic connection with a person or sexual stuff that you do with a person as a way to work your way into their alliance, which is something that seemingly is what Olivia is doing because she does not have a romantic connection to Horacio. They mentioned that while they're all hanging out at the pool, and we all know what the pool party is for. The pool party is to get those hot bods on camera. We all know what time it is. You don't come on the challenge unless you're shredded, unless you're ripped, unless you're in really good shape just in general. They haven't had a fat guy on since that guy named Eric, which is actually super disappointing because they kept sending him into elimination, and I think he won like 3 in a row. And then eventually he lost one that required like crazy cardio or something like that, and they eliminated him. But since then, I think he's done well. I think they called him like Big Red when he was on the show too. It's for the bots. Apparently, Colleen, I noticed during the pool party, Colleen got the dump truck and didn't tell anybody. Olivia actually seems like she might actually be into Nelson. It's not like one of those things where like Nelson's kind of like, hey, what's up? Hey, what's up? Hey, what's up? And she's like kind of hollering back, maybe. Who knows? I know the age thing is like a difference or whatever. But speaking of age, Mariah says something that, quite frankly, if I was a person trying to holler at Mariah, this would age me into a pile of dust. She is talking about how she's been flirting and Bananas has been flirting. Johnny Bananas has been flirting with her. She then follows up in a diary entry and says, "My mom said to watch out for him because he's a sneaky snake." Now, that may seem slightly innocuous because, oh man, it's like, her mom is looking out for her, trying to make sure to steer her the right way or whatever. The thing that is hilarious, though, because this kind of implies that Mariah's mom has been watching the challenge for potentially years. Mariah is 26 years old, which means that like 8 years ago, Mariah was like in high school and Johnny was on the challenge, and I want to say won that season. And it means that like Mariah getting advice about Johnny from her mom because her mom watches that TV, that watches the TV that Johnny's on, the show that Johnny's on, is hilarious. It is like the ultimate wow. You're like somebody that my mom thinks is really cool and you're trying to flirt with me. It has to make you feel like you are literally 157 years old instantly. Where it's like, my mom told me about you because she's been watching you since you were like 22, which is when I was 12. It really sent me back because I had to think about it for a second, and I was like, oh no, there's like a legit possibility that Mariah was like in middle school while her mom was watching the challenge. Or maybe her mom just got hit up by somebody that she knows, and they were like, hey, this guy is like this or whatever, she's going to be on the show with him. Or I like to think there's a world where Mariah's mom is a super fan. Anyway, Laurel's still macking on Horacio. Totally understandable. Everybody's good looking in the house. Everybody's going to, kind of see where they fit in and all that kind of stuff like that. That leads into another party. One of the few episodes where you get 2 party scenes that go down. The party is an emo party. I have an emo party. I have no idea what inspired this whatsoever. Could have been somebody talking about when we were young, or the giant festival in Vegas that had literally every pop punk band that every kid my age listened to when they were in middle school and high school, except Fall Out Boy. I don't think it was there. Anyway, I also have big questions. There was like a Rick from Rick and Morty wig that was being utilized in this show, in this shot by Jack, and I wonder, and this is something I've wondered for years now, like how much of this is props provided by the production crew because they're flying to another country. Like, they're in Argentina, right? How much of it is props provided by the production company and stuff that, like, the people in the show brought to potentially, like, whip out at any point to kind of get the cameras on them a little bit, get a little bit of attention, try and do some weird stuff in the house, make everybody laugh, all that kind of jazz like that. Because I have to imagine that, like, they don't get to bring a ton of stuff, and you never know, like, you don't know what kind of party is going to pop off at the at that season, right? Like, you know, you're going to be in the bar, you know, there's going to be probably a pool that everybody hangs out at a regular basis, people are going to be naked, all that kind of jazz like that, but you don't know that there's going to be an emo party where you can wear a Rick mask from a wig from Rick and Morty, which Jack has. Jack has pink hair, so it's actually really funny. But yeah, that was the opening portion of the show. Darrell and Veronica have a conversation about where they stand in the show. Moving on, let's talk about something else. Let's talk about, the Daily Challenge. The challenge is called Royal Relay, and it's heavily inspired by the fact that this is the Burger King sponsored event that happens almost every single season. Burger King does a really good job of getting out here in front of this, 500,000 people that watch the challenge on a regular basis. I saw the ratings are like 0.4, 0.7, 0.47, 0.46, all that kind of jazz like that. I'm sure there's even more people who are watching illegally and other stuff like that. But the thing to take away from this is Burger King not just putting up, in years past, they've done a thing where it's like you get free Burger King for like a year or like 3 years or something like that. This one, they putting up a little cashola. They putting up a little Skrilla, which has happened before, but $5,000, hey. If you go on the challenge and have these people stressing the fuck out of you on a regular basis every single day that you wake up, you might as well take home $5,000. That, look, it's not $1 million, but you can still do a lot with 5Gs, especially when you like an adult. Some of these people got kids, all that kind of stuff. Darrell can do a lot with $5,000. That might be enough to buy clothes for the kids all year. Who knows? He got 3 daughters, right? He always brings it up. Anyway, which is understandable. You're a parent. This challenge off the rip is fucking brutal. So you can see the description to the right of me if you're watching on Twitch or if you're watching on YouTube. To the right of me, the daily challenge is kind of explained. Teams collect 4 crown points. So there's a circle, that's a crown. They have 4 spots that have to have each one of the crown portions of the crown locked into it. The only way to get them is to, swim to the first one and swim to the second one, and then row your boat, literally a boat, like a rowing boat that like they use in like Olympic rowing and collegiate rowing and stuff like that, where the seat slides back and forth, using that to go get the other 2. And each portion of the relay has to be done by a different person. So there's a leg that has to be swam down and back to get a crown for the lady on the team and one for the guy on the team. And there also has to be a leg where the guy and the gal have to row the boat back and forth. So they have to make a switch, all that kind of jazz like that. It is brutal. This takes so much energy on so many different levels. As you guys know, the daily is where we just explain what happened throughout the daily challenge. And then the challenge portion of the show is where we break down the actual physical athletic feat that was happening. We'll talk about that in a little bit. By swimming and rowing to each location, the team has to have each person do every single one. This is one of the rare moments where none of the challengers say that they cannot swim. There's usually, sad to say, more often than not, it is the black competitors on the show, which, wow, man, if you've ever wanted to see like a deep, dark history on something that's happened in America, look up why a lot of black people, like, don't know how to swim culturally. It stems from, as you could imagine, oppression. Anyway, this starts the beginnings of something that is run throughout the course of the show, and it is the beginning of Michelle's paranoia bubbling to the surface, which Amber kind of like laughs off a little bit because she's technically in an alliance with her, but it also hangs out with her outside of the show. But Michelle legitimately believes that Laurel is after her, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. starting off everything that happens in the challenge, the Royal Relay. Amber and Chauncey get DQ'd because they, quote-unquote, synced their boat. The boat looked like it was made out of wood. Don't know how, but they got too much water, I'm sure, in the hull, and it made the boat lean to the right-hand side, and then more water got into it, and they couldn't save it. Jordan rowed a 2-oar boat with one hand because he still continues every single episode to prove that he is the freakiest of athletes that has probably ever been on the challenge. He also continues to be really nice to Anissa, which is probably just as important as the amazing feats that he's pulling off. If you recall, last week he was one of two Anissa and Jordan were one of two pairs to complete a challenge where you have to jump off of a skyscraper, grab your partner wherever you can, and swing towards a flag that is significantly further away using your momentum. And Jordan had to do that with one hand because he had to let go of one of his hands to grab the flag. And that's the one that he used that had the fingers. And then the other one that didn't have any fingers or didn't have all of the fingers, he had to use it to grab like Anissa's butt. That's why we gave Anissa's butt the MVP for that challenge. Anyway, he also continues to be really nice to Anissa. A lot of people keep making fun of this on Twitter because they all think it's an act. They all think it's fake. Jordan, like I said before, is clearly taking a different approach. He's not as serious as he has been in years past, and it may be because of a multitude of reasons, but for the most part, it comes off like he's trying to be a person that they want to invite back on the show simply because he's good for the show, not necessarily because he's consistently winning. Veronica, at one point, a lot of the challengers, a lot of the competitors, when they jump into the water, because the first portion of it is the swimming portion where you swim to the buoy, bring back the piece, and then your partner jumps in, swims to the other buoy, brings back the other piece, right? A lot of people were using just your regular freestyle stroke to, like you normally swim in a giant lake, towards the crown piece. Veronica is one of the few people, and I don't know if it's because Veronica just didn't have the physical fitness to be able to pull this one off, because it is exhausting to swim, especially when you got a life jacket on. It's exhausting a little bit, but Veronica was like backstroking, which is the only time the other competitors were backstroking is when they had the crown piece sitting on their chest, and they wanted to be able to use all their limbs to go towards where they were going, and when you're backstroking like that, you get a better rhythm overall. Anyway, and I think the pieces float, so they actually helped out a bunch, plus the life jacket. But yeah, like Veronica looked like she went completely the wrong direction. This was a physical challenge, and guess what? Darrell may have all these great physical gifts, but he can only go as far as Veronica's going to let him go, and she's not going to let him go too far, because it didn't look like she was really out there busting her hump to try and get anything done. Mariah, Fessy's partner Mariah, has apparently never been in a boat ever. A rowboat ever. She's from Florida, so that's interesting. But to her credit, she did mention she thought it was going to be like the rowboat or the rowing ergonomic rowing machine in the gym, which I can respect because the motion is technically similar. The oars are, because if you remember, it's basically like a giant bike gear system, and there's a wire cord, and the things are molded together. It's just one handle instead of two handles like you would in a boat. It is a similar motion of going like in a circle, getting the rhythm, pushing off, getting the seat to go back and forth, but you have to know how to flip the oars so that they catch the water, so that they go from flat like this to open like this to push backwards. If you can't get that timing right, which I will say this, Mariah had her hands on the tops of the oars instead of like a normal person where they have their palms facing towards the oars and they're using it to flip. She looked like she had it like her palms facing up and grabbing the oars. It's very interesting. It was probably one of the many funny things that they caught on film, but that was probably the most egregious. The boat factor really was a really good equalizer for the teams that didn't swim well, because you could either know how to row a rowboat or know how to swim decently, and it allowed a couple of lead changes to happen throughout the course of it. In particular, I think Horacio and Olivia got passed up by Jordan and Anissa. Kim and Colleen, they legit get a super over-the-top montage of Kim rowing, because Kim is talking about how he's like 6'3" or whatever. He's talking about how he finally felt like he was in rhythm and he was just flying across this lake while he was rowing, and they gave him like super zoomed in, slow motion, Nickelback-esque type music. They had his hair whipping in the air. They had even Laurel drop in some diary stuff where it sounded like she'd been trying to like check out Kim as well, like in a hey, how you doing kind of sense. But she also talked about how Kim looked amazing out there in the boat kind of deal, and they came in second because Tori and Devin won the heat that they were in, and the other heat was won by Jay and Michelle, which is really important because if you're paying attention at home, that is one pair from each of the main alliances that is in the show this season. So this is literally a fight for power. It is not an outlier. It is not a group of people who have no connection to everybody else in the show. It is just straight up these guys who are people who are a part of the Outsiders Alliance and who are part of the Veterans Alliance. So let's find out who wins. Let's find out who wins, shall we? The winners are Jay and Michelle because they absolutely look like, based off the footage they showed us, absolutely dominated. Jay is, like we mentioned before in the preseason breakdown of everybody's athletic ability, he's a surfer, so he swims a lot on a regular basis, and he also swims in the most important portion, which is actually, wow, we skipped something real quick. So just going back to the athletic port, talking about what the difficult parts of it, I think it can be difficult for people to understand, like why some of these tasks are difficult and why they're challenges. Swimming in open water is extremely difficult, even if the water is calm on any given day. Most open giant portions of water, which is where they were swimming, it was like a giant lake. They were swimming in a giant lake. All those have like a current that kind of flows through it, even if like I said, even if the wind is calm, they still have a current that flows through the entirety of the lake. They're swimming, all that kind of jazz like that. The cardio that is required to just swim in general, the coordination, and this is one of those things that this is related to the carrying of the crown piece, the coordination that it takes to be able to figure out how to swim with something that's not your body attached to you. The knowledge to be able to know how to row a boat obviously became a huge factor very early on. Most people have never been in a boat or rowed a boat in their entire life, which is understandable, especially if you live in a place that has no water. That's a real possibility for a lot of people. Or you used to row, or you've been in a rowboat before and it was like 20 years ago because you don't live by water. Anyway, also water perception, very small thing that came into big factor is the ability to understand where you're at physically in the lake in relation to where you are going. Because if you're going to use the backstroke, knowing how to backstroke in a straight line is actually super difficult because most people drift to the side of their dominant hand. So I'm left-handed and it happens to me all the time. And eventually, which the funny part is, this is the same thing that happens. They talk about this if you get lost in the desert and you just start walking in a general direction, you're eventually just gonna make a jump. And you don't have perception of like the city that I'm going towards is that way, or you can't see where, you don't have a event horizon thing to pay attention to guide you in a straight line. Eventually you'll walk in a circle of your dominant leg, which is for some people the side of their dominant hand, right? So if you're left-handed, it'll be your left leg. You'll eventually walk in a circle created by your left leg, so it would be to the inside. It would be a circle going to the left, like a NASCAR track would. Crazy. Anyway, perception of where you are in the water is super important. There's a lot of people who did the backstroke and they drifted away from where they were going. In particular, Veronica did it as well, and it increased the time. I think Jack had that happen to him. When he was in the water, he lost where he was in relation to the dock where the crown was at, and it increased the amount of time that they had to spend in the water getting the piece out. So that's a big factor. Moving on, we already announced who the winner was. I'm just going to go through and do this one. The winner, Jay and Michelle, they dominated their heat, and they dominated apparently the entirety of that challenge. The vets have now won 4 out of the 5 available daily challenges so far. Why is that important? Other than the first challenge where Kayla and Sam got eliminated, there have been 3 straight rookie pairs that have been sent home. 3 rookie pairs, because right now we don't know who got eliminated in episode 5, but there have been 3 straight rookie pairs that have been sent home. and the known alliance for Jay and Michelle is Olivia and Horacio, and I guess you can put Amber and Chauncey on this one as well. It's difficult to kind of get a grasp on like where, especially based off of what happened in terms of like their interrogation, their selection, who they consulted to try and figure out who to put into elimination is interesting, because it didn't seem like they really talked to anybody at all, and we'll talk about that when we get to it in a second as well. But nonetheless, 3 straight rookie pairs have been sent home, which is perfectly on track for everything that has ever happened in any season of the challenge, except like the first like 10 or whatever. But as of late, that has been the go-to formula for the veteran players. They don't want to go home, they want to stay in contention for the money, and so they go for the players who are getting introduced into the show, who are brand new, which of course fucks those guys over, because it limits the amount of time that they have to be able to make an impact on the show, because usually what happens is there's a rookie or like a pair of rookies that that eventually get all the way that eventually get to the end. There's like one rookie or a couple of rookies that prove themselves quote unquote useful to the vets, in the sense that they'll do whatever they say and they're very good competitors, right? So they add them into the fold so they don't have to compete against those guys. Haven't seen that happen yet, but we'll talk about something stupid that happened after this. So those are the winners. That's and we'll see if the trend continues by the time the end of this episode rolls around, shall we? Let's move on to the four names listed for interrogation by Jay and Michelle. They made it seem like they really struggled to come up with these names. I don't know how they struggled to come up with these names. We're going to go through and talk about why this is quite possibly the second most half-assed move that we've seen so far in the challenge. The first one being possibly Johnny and Raven not going 100% veterans across the board when it came to their first election. They did make big moves. I would say that this is more half-assed to a certain degree, but I could also understand why people would say Jay and Michelle's is the beginning of this. 2 of these 4 pairs. So let's start off at the top. 2 of these 4 pairs mentioned are retreads. They're people who are safe to say because they've had their names said before. There are also people with no clear connection to another alliance, in Kim and Colleen and Veronica and Darrell. Right? That's been a storyline the last 2 episodes since they got here. They got named the first week that they were on the show, and it was pretty obvious. It was because a lot of people probably don't think that Darrell and Veronica are going to win a daily challenge whatsoever, and it may be why they don't feel like the vets are really embracing them all that much, because they can't afford to have more people in the alliance or whatever, because eventually they have to say people's names, and they don't want to piss people off to the point where they're directly coming for them, even though eventually everybody's got to go for everybody, right? This is the biggest problem with me. The picking people who, if like, you have to think about it in the sense of like, what do I accomplish if that person gets sent home? What do I gain if they send home any of the people? Like, if you know that you don't control who gets sent home, that means that all 4 of the people that you pick have to give you some kind of benefit if they get eliminated. Kim and Colleen don't benefit you from, as a matter of fact, you could argue they even hurt you for getting sent home, because they were potential allies that you could have roped into your alliance, and now they're not. Jack and Laurel, we'll talk about that in a little bit, but like getting rid of Darrell and Veronica, 2 people that you could have on your side, even though you know what Darrell and Veronica are up to. They're trying to get into the vet alliance. Anissa and Jordan, they're valuable if you send them home for sure. And Jack and Laurel, who very quickly become the obvious target in relation to these other 4 people. They do the production team does a good job of very quickly having you understand, even though, you know, all these things have been going on with the new rookies in the house and everything like that, all these other vets have been hanging out with each other, and one of the big tight relationships that people have been getting together is Jack and Jay. Right? Like, they're cool with each other, they're tight with each other, they're bros, they talk to each other all the time, and I'll talk about why I think that Jack may be playing it up a little bit for the cameras, about how his hate for it, which also he could just be really mad that somebody flipped up on him. Anyway, it was one of those things where it's like, the number of names that can be said are getting smaller. Eventually, alliance members are going to have to put their own guys in the into elimination. So, like, why not accelerate that process? That was the biggest thing that I had beef with. They should keep... Oh, and then I also said Kim and Colleen have a very obvious path. Same thing with Darrell and Veronica. They have a very obvious path that they could take that would probably benefit them. If you know you're going to go into elimination, or you know you're going to be one of the 4 names said, Darrell and Veronica, Kim and Colleen, which they've been said, 2 episodes in a row now. Kim and Colleen have been in every single potential elimination. You go into the interrogation. You ask them whose name they want you to say, right? Like you're gonna help them out, and then you don't say that name. You say the other name. Like you flip up on them. Like that would have, like last week would have been perfect because there was a lot at stake for when Kim and Colleen pulled the dagger and saved Olivia and Horacio, right? That was one of those things where it's like you're going to go into elimination no matter what. So there's nothing you can do short of winning the daily challenge that's going to prevent you from going into elimination. Winning the daily challenge has nothing to do with other people trying to help you for the most part, especially with the way things are right now. But Kim and Colleen could have very easily shown up and been one of those groups of people that like, oh man, save Olivia and Horacio, and been like, okay, cool, so we're only going to save Darrell and Veronica. Because you guys don't understand. Like, if you send us down here, we are now going to target the people that you want to protect. And so there is no benefit to putting them into elimination or both of them into elimination because they're going to be a threat to the people that you're trying to prevent from going home. Now, the other argument you can make is like, oh, well, we just put the 100% of the other alliance down there so that you have to select them to go home. Which, my thing is with Kim and Colleen, every single time that they've gone down into the zone, it has never felt like they have made their decision about who they're going to save. It is always like somebody asking them to save them. It is always the person who has the position of power to ask to save them. And like I mentioned last episode, you get an iota of time where you're the most powerful player in the house. And if that's when you're in the zone, because you can choose who goes into elimination. And that is a power that even the people who won the daily challenge technically don't have. They can try and influence it a certain way as much as possible, but they do not have the ability to force you to pick who you want to go into elimination. So they're begging and pleading you. You have the power and the leverage over them, especially if they've already fucked up and said your name. Same thing with Darrell and Veronica. Because using it as a way to try and endear yourself to the people who put you into elimination is bullshit because they've already put you into elimination and they're going to keep doing it. Both of the alliances now have put Kim and Colleen into elimination. Both of the alliances have now put Darrell and Veronica into elimination. There's no reason to try and help these people. They're not trying to help you at all. Anyway, moving on. Jack and Laurel, this is, like I said, the bro connection between Jay and Jack have been fleshed out in combination with the paranoia that Michelle has that she's cooking up, like that Laurel has beef with her. There is one of 3 things that is going on with Michelle right now, and they could all be very true. I wouldn't be surprised if one of these 3 things is true. Michelle is paranoid, and the product... she is a product of the house. The house typically drives people to the point where they snap in some way, shape, or form. Now, this would be pretty early in the season for somebody to be like flipping out about things that are going on in the house. Usually it happens late in the season where you feel like you're really close to getting towards the final, but you also know that there are daily challenges. You also know that because there are fewer people in the house, every person who's in the house, even your alliance members, are now your enemy, right? There are people who you're ganged up with and they become a threat even to you, and so it kind of weighs on you a little bit and little things really start to annoy you. Also hanging out with all these random people who some of them are strangers, some of them are your friends, but you don't live with them, right? Like there's a big difference. That Michelle could be having a symptom of like being locked up in the house all the time because she's locked up technically in what we all perceive right now to be the most precarious situation. She's not in the quote unquote dominant alliance in the house. So she really is going to have a tough time feeling comfortable around other people. She has to watch what she says around people because you never know who's listening. She's trying to like figure out how to work people into her alliance, and it's hard to trust people just in general. Or number 2, Michelle's making all this up, like in her head. Number 3, Michelle is making it up to draw attention to her on the show and an excuse to go at Laurel, who allegedly has no alliance according to her, and we all know good and goddamn well Laurel has an alliance, and it is the veterans. There's a massive hint to that. She basically all but admits it a little bit later on in the show. I can't see anyone wanting to work with someone if you are a person that thinks that her paranoia has driven her to not only to the point where she is imagining things that are going on, right? And now has driven her to make a horrible game move, because now it's like her personal stuff is affecting her ability to play this game at the highest level. One of the biggest mistakes, oh, by the way, before I move on, Jack and Laurel pull off one of the best interrogations of the entire season, better than Turbo walking out and refusing to talk and then like calling his girlfriend like she's a dog to come join him, right? Jack and Laurel just are dead silent. They don't say anything while Michelle and Jay are explaining why they put them on the 4 names for interrogation. They don't say anything, and guess what that does to Michelle? It makes her spiral even harder, because she's like, oh, she's not even freaking out about going into elimination. It's like, well, it's already done, right? Like, her name has already been said. There's nothing that can take that away, right? And Laurel probably doesn't have anything to say, because there's like, she doesn't need to negotiate anything with people who she perceives are in a worse position in the game than she is. She just needs to win an elimination or not go in it at all. And she just goes back to being in the bigger, more dominant alliance, because she's in the veteran alliance, the more dominant alliance, and living her life, while Michelle and Jay go back to being target enemy number 1 in the house, like they always have been, because nobody likes the Survivor people, right? Like, Anissa and Jordan come in, and Anissa tries to play like the we're friends card, like that matters, because we've already seen Nany put Michelle into elimination. We'll talk about that later. But Jordan's also like, oh, this is, by the way, just in case you're wondering, this is why people don't trust the Survivor people. And it's like, no, they didn't do anything to initially gain your distrust. This is a move that any veteran who's not inside your alliance would make, because if they don't perceive you as a part of their alliance, they're going to go for you. This is one of those things where like they spaz out, and they think about their game from their perspective, and they don't ever show like any empathy towards anybody else's move to attack them, right? So it's like illogical to a certain degree. They act like they're being selected out of the crowd to be picked on. It's like, no, dude, like I'm legitimately playing this game so that I can survive to see next week. And that's how it goes. The big takeaway from the interrogation section is 100%, and everybody mentions it like they fucking should, is that Bananas and Nany are not listed after they legit are the only people who you could argue this season that have gone at Jay and Michelle unnecessarily. There were more people in the game. That happened in episode 2. So there were like 16 pairs in the game that they could have gone at, and they decided to go for Jay and Michelle because they were targeting Olivia and Horacio and Johnny and Raven, and they were like, they're in their alliance too. We're going to put them in. You see, that's how you do it, Michelle, if you're out there watching, which I doubt you are. I'm assuming you're back at home living your best life, whether you won the challenge or not. But yeah, this was like common sense. And I say she, and I put the blame on Michelle, because Jay basically relinquishes any ability he has to sway Michelle by, when they say the interrogation names, like, you pick, you're better at this than I am. And it's like, everybody's got to make tough decisions, and the person who's spazzing out the hardest probably isn't the best person to make the decisions. But Bananas and Nany put Jay and Michelle put Jay and Michelle in the zone for potentially going up for elimination to go home, depending upon what the challenge is. And they've shown that their friendship, whatever Nany and Michelle's friendship, if that is actually what is for real, because it would not surprise me if Michelle is one of those people who does not read her connection with people all that well. I used to be that person. I like to imagine that I'm getting slightly better at understanding whether or not people actually value me as a person, right? I'm trying to get better at being selective about who I call my friend and who I don't. I learned the hard way by being betrayed by other people, right? And maybe Michelle, because she's a pretty lady and she's a nice person, has not been betrayed enough to the point where she knows who to trust in all these situations, right? But she's good enough, like, to be on Survivor and win it, right? That's the tough part. But yeah, man, it is like super clear. She at one point how do I say this? Michelle in particular, not Michelle and Jay, because I think Jay's ship of being connected and cool and trying to get cool with the veterans to work with them in the show, I think that ship has sailed. I think that ship is gone. I think Jay is all about trying to build an alliance that can take down the vets because those guys are more likely to come back the following season if they can be a big problem for the veterans. And then try and adapt and try and add in the rookies into the show and keep them around and get rid of the vets, right? That being said, Michelle, on the other hand, still seems to be convinced, and she doesn't say it out loud, but it shows in her actions. She still thinks that she has a chance to get into the vet alliance, to get cool with the people, when it's like they've already shown their cards. It is house money. They showed their cards, and she's still trying to do things as if they're going to be loyal to her. She literally says it twice. She's like, "Oh, we saved Bananas and Nani, and now they have an IOU to us." And I'm like, that's not how this game works at all. Like, if you have to give somebody something to get something in exchange, you're not, one, in an alliance with them, or two, cool with them enough to get anything from them. Now, Bananas and Nani may never, ever be in a position of power again, and so now they can just tell you that they tried to convince whoever it is that's in their alliance that gets power, that puts them into elimination. They tried to convince them and it just didn't work. And they can just literally sit on their thumbs, all that kind of stuff like that. It's so dumb. Michelle wants to get that invite to hang out with the cool kids so bad. So bad. Used to be that guy. Really did. And until I gained like the appreciation of myself is one thing for sure. And I'm still working on that on a daily basis. Perceiving myself as a person that's like good enough to appreciate, right? And as you can tell by the way how difficult it was for me to say that out loud, we're trying to get better, but I said it out loud. Self-deprecation used to be like my number one go-to thing because it was like, oh man, let's make these people laugh by like making fun of yourself because they're already thinking these jokes and all this kind of stuff like that. But yeah, like Michelle looks just like how I did. She's bending over backwards and they won't even get up off the couch, right? She's bending over backwards to help them and they won't even pull off their blindfold while they're taking a nap to see what's going on. And it's just not going to happen, man. Like, I highly doubt, especially after what happens when we get to, like, the elimination and the challenge and stuff like that, there's no help coming for them. They just gave somebody something for free because there was no discussion about it beforehand. There was no deal set in stone. And on top of that, guess what? There ain't no fucking consequences. The vets have won technically, the vets have won 4 straight. And they've gotten their way 4 straight times because they're about to get their way in this episode. We'll talk about here in a second. That's the problem. Like they did not play this like they were in a position of power. And even afterwards, you can like in Michelle's voice before elimination, she talks about, she's like, yeah, like, didn't want the power, probably don't want it back again. I'm like, then you don't want to win this game. There's only been like 6 people ever in the history of the challenge, and Nelson is one of them, to not win a daily challenge and make it to the final. If you don't want the power, you don't want to win. And if you don't want to win, look, there's plenty of people on this show that'll send you down into elimination and send you home real quick. But I have a strange feeling that Jay wants to win. Jay is a good enough competitor to be able to win. They showed themselves to be a threat by winning this daily challenge because that shit was hard. That swimming challenge and that rowing challenge was extremely difficult, especially considering it could be a big factor that comes up later on in the show because a lot of the times some of the daily challenges rear their ugly head again, especially if they hit hard the first time and challenged everybody in the house, and they come around again. Anyway, and there's usually a water portion of the final anyway every single time. Let's move on. Let's talk about the club. There was no club scene this episode, which is sad. I will say this, Devin's still an icon. Devin got into his emo costume at the emo party and then sat in the room by himself in a corner. Very much just giving people the perfect screenshot, the photos to take, all that kind of stuff like that. He is dominating this show in terms of remaining a character while also not being the center of attention in terms of like elimination, in terms of having positions of power. He's doing all the little things. He's doing all the hustle, the intangibles. He's the person who's yelling the loudest when TJ announces something like, oh, this challenge is sponsored by Burger King. We need y'all to be excited. He's the person who's yelling the funny things at elimination. He's the person who's out there at the club giving them the scenes that they want. Everybody's dancing and drinking and all that kind of stuff like that. They get those a dime a dozen. What they don't get is Devin sitting at the bar staring into the void with a drink in front of him as if somebody just killed his puppy. Right? That's the thing that's like the shocking contrast back and forth. It's hilarious. Devin's out here killing it. Devin and Jordan, big ups to those guys. They are doing a killer job of dominating the diary room and then the little stuff on camera as well. So sometimes you gotta pay respect. There is no club scene this week. We move on, and it actually it took me a while to figure out, this is one of the few moments where everybody gets to party and drink without there being names on the board, without there being an elimination on the verge of it. And I don't know if they cut it and edited it a different way, right? Where those two parties happened the day before the elimination, or like the day after or whatever for the elimination or whatever. But it was no names on the board based off the way it was cut, which means that like people were not freaking out. Nobody had to go around like make deals with each other. People were just like naturally trying to socialize to gain confidence and connection with other people, which is cool. That's a big factor for sure. Anyway, we're moving on. We're towards the end, ladies and gentlemen. We're powering through. Remember, we have our rankings for the partners at the end of this show as well. The elimination. This is kind of wild, but we'll talk about it. Wow, I didn't change this one. My bad. This is one of the few slides I didn't fix. The elimination, straight into the zone, voted on by yours truly. I'm just kidding, not yours truly. Voted on by our girl, Michelle, and our boy, Jay. Michelle to convince Jay to send in his friend in the house. Jack and Laurel go in, and they are fucking pissed. Jack calls, and by the way, I think this is a moment where Jack may have been mad, but also Jack's been kind of like, a little two-faced the entire show. He flipped up on Olivia. He flipped up on, Colleen and Kim, even though they eventually saved him later on. Jack calls Jay a snake rat bitch. Interesting combination. I also think that it is an attempt to, make it seem like it's that intense of a betrayal that the audience can get behind it and all that kind of stuff like that. Very much WWE wrestler, where I'm sure Jack realized, looking at who was on the board, who the target was, like almost immediately, because he's a smart person. So, yeah. And he also talked about how he never forgets, he never forgives kind of deal. He's like, I've never forgiven anybody who's ever done anything against me, which is, wow, a wild statement to say if true as a human being. But totally understand it. It's a tough world being a gay man out there in the world in general. Totally understand why you're just not out here giving your trust away willy-nilly. But they tried, like I said before, Jack seems like he's trying to play it up for the cameras a little bit. We're talking about the man who brought the wildest shirt onto this fucking show. And I still think it was pretty cool. And it actually matched the color scheme for the season, too. That was the wild part. The dagger. Still only utilized for being safe. The dagger is selected by Veronica and Darrell, interestingly enough. Veronica then puts on the performance so far of the season down in the zone. She goes on a long diatribe about how she was expecting a certain someone to come up, have a conversation with her about, hey, we need to be looking out for each other depending upon who pulls this dagger, right? And that conversation never happened. She's talking about Anissa and Jordan, which is another major sign that Darrell and Veronica are not wanted by the Veteran Alliance and even the smaller subsects of the Alliance in general, because I would imagine it's because Veronica is Darrell's partner. I'm not even, like, no offense or anything like that, but like Veronica is the least athletic lady on the show now. So, and that is not changing anytime soon. Like I said before, it's got to be a big concern if you're Darrell in terms of like whether or not Veronica is going to work out while she's inside the house and everybody else is, you know what I mean? But yeah, Veronica does yet another massively iconic speech before making her selection on who to save. Her speech hints that she may potentially flip up on Anissa and Jordan. Anissa, a friend that she's had for like 15 years, so we shouldn't have ever been surprised when that was all bullshit and she picked Anissa and Jordan to save them and send Kim and Colleen into elimination. So, yeah. Was not surprising at all. But it was a sign that, like, Veronica and Darrell are like, oh, we're doing this as, like, a favor to you. And, like, you know, we need to have a conversation about, like, who's in what position. And if you listen to Anissa, she's only made a promise to one person on the show, and it is Tori, which, of course, makes sense because they're besties, right? Elimination. Naming an elimination is Give Me Some Slack, which I'm pretty sure has been the name of another elimination in years past, and it was formatted differently, which I get it. There's only so many punny type names that you can come up with. This one is pretty, it makes sense. So there's a rock wall on one side where there are pieces, like little miniature pieces, that match up to the other side of a rock wall that are massive versions of the other pieces. So there's squares with, is it a rhombus or like just miniature pyramids without points on the top of them, right? They're circular on the top, and they each have handholds in them. One side, they take up the entirety of the wall. The other one, they're scattered in their miniature handheld portions that match up with the ones that are on the giant side of the rock wall. Now, you probably can guess what the objective is. The objective is to replicate the big side of the big version of the wall over on the other side. And because of the way that they're set up, imagine like a V, and you can't see the big side of the wall, because the point and the objective is like you have to communicate with your partner as to where the pattern, or you have to communicate the pattern to your partner to match up the small pieces on the answer board in comparison to the big pieces that are on the rock wall. So your partner climbs up around, all that kind of stuff like that. The angles that they're at makes it difficult to see which way the giant pieces are formatted, so you have to climb to the top, and the only way to climb to the top is if your partner is all the way at the bottom, giving you slack to be able to rock climb all the way to the top. If you're at the top of the wall, your partner basically can't move, and you have to be the pulley system that pulls them up to the top of the wall. The other way, and it goes the other way around too. Kim and Colleen come up with a really good system off the bat. Kim goes up, pulls off every single piece that he can get in one try. So he climbs up and down the wall, pulling off every single one of the smaller pieces, throws them on the ground immediately, and now he doesn't have to climb up the wall ever again. Right now, he can focus on giving giving Colleen as much slack as she can possibly use. Laurel and Jack, looks like Laurel kind of gets Laurel's on the small side of the wall for their partnership, and Jack is on the side with the colors and the shapes and the giant versions of it, right? And it's flipped. Kim, the guy, is on the small side of the wall for them, and Colleen is on the matching side with the big pieces and everything like that. They're communicating, yelling. Laurel's losing her shit like she always is, which means that she's probably in peak athletic form as this one goes on. That's usually how it goes for her. She's usually on point when she sounds like she's absolutely insane. Kim and Colleen stay really calm throughout the course of this one, and it gets really close. Kim and Colleen actually finish first, but miss it. They spend so much time trying to figure out the pieces that they messed up. They go through every single one of the pieces. Kim can't find the one that's messed up. Laurel and Jack put theirs together, and then the pieces like slip off the answer board and they get kind of messed up or whatever. They call for a check. It's not right. They completely start over while Kim and Colleen are going through each individual one, trying to match them up again instead of starting over completely. Starting over helps out Laurel and Jack because they're starting from the base, and they bail out in enough time for them to be able to do so, right? Laurel and Jack win, meaning that the potential rookies of the year and really the fan favorites, Kim and Colleen, huge resounding support from those guys. I will be honest, they grew on me a little bit as time went on. I've thought there was some shenanigans going on early on when they would go into the zone and they just so happen to pick the people of color that go into elimination. And the people who look like they're straight out of Game of Thrones were sitting there celebrating that they didn't go into elimination for like 3 episodes in a row. And as time went on, you got to see them improve especially in the last couple of challenges. We talked about the Royal Relay. They look like they finished in second place in their heat behind Tori and Devin, which was pretty cool. They slowly improved. They grew on people a little bit. Colleen and Kim, they struggled with their English, but nonetheless, you can understand their hearts. And I appreciate that. But yeah, it was a real bummer to see them get sent home. But Laurel is one of the greatest competitors in the history of this show, and Jack was not going to stop her from being successful. Laurel moves on, and these are two stats that I found. One was on Fandom. The other one was from a guy named The Alan Aguirre on Twitter. So, by the way, Kim and Colleen had one piece that was incorrect on the entire puzzle. They had one piece that was facing the wrong way, or else they would have eliminated Laurel and Jack. Laurel now holds the record for the most... she used to hold the record for the most consecutive eliminations. She got 9 straight eliminations on the show. Her last 2 appearances... she had 3 appearances, and she had one where she got eliminated by Camilla, and I think this is a season that Camilla eventually won, one of the 3 she won. If you don't know who Camilla is, she has the nickname Camilla Nader because when she gets drunk, she becomes an absolutely horrible fucking human being. She's basically banned from ever being on the show ever again because she's been caught saying racist things multiple times over, disrespecting the staff, and she's actually won. She's one of the best competitors ever in the history of the show. She is also a bad person, based off of everything that we understand. She's a really good competitor though. She's also that classic person that the second that you start trying to, when she gets drunk, she comes to the house, she forgets everything that happened. She didn't know what happened and all that kind of shit like that. She's also the crier. When people are hey, you did messed up stuff, she starts crying immediately. She was that person. The other elimination was the one that we talked about in the preseason called Branching Out, where she had the rock climbing or the tree climbing competition with Ninja, who is also banned from the show because she said something about... she said something racist about black people during 2020, I think. Look it up. There's so many people on the challenge who have just been perma-banned because they literally... they're people that you can't assess. You can't assess whether somebody is instantaneously racist, especially when they're not inebriated. But Ninja just kind of gave it up on purpose. You know what? I gotta. Okay, I'm pretty sure she tweeted something. Ninja. All right. Ninja the challenge. Let's see. She tweeted something racist about black people, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah. Oh, man. I gotta look it up. I'm trying to look at it on Twitter, and I thought it would be the first thing to come up, but I forget the challenge isn't as popular as I think it is. Ninja from the challenge banned. So... here we go. This is from the Reddit thread. By the way, shout out to the challenge Reddit. Love it out there. They're fucking dope. I love them. All the people are real chill. Even the people who are way too intense about the show are real chill. Let me see. Control F Ninja. Let's see. And there's a whole thread on the people who are banned. Yeah, Ninja had racist tweets from before she was on the show. Yeah, that's why she got banned. Oh yeah, so there's a whole list, and these are all people who've been on the show. I guess this is a good time to do this before I finish up the show. Georgia, who I'm pretty sure Georgia's the one that got Bear arrested because he recorded them having sex at his house. Yeah, this show's fucking wild, man. But yeah, she got caught in blackface. Turbo, difficult to control. Lola openly talked really bad about the challenge on MTV. Yeah, obviously. Vinny pulled off one of the ladies' top during Battle of the Exes. Maddie went on Maddie went on IG, said she was let go by MTV. Shane went on social media after War of the Worlds and allegedly called out producers by accusing them of discrimination. Pauly, social media post after War of the Worlds. War of the Worlds is one of the most... War of the Worlds and War of the Worlds 2 are two of the best seasons ever, and you can tell by how vicious everybody was afterwards. Like, there are people who, like, legitimately hate each other after War of the Worlds. But yeah, Pauly is, like, one of the best competitors in the history of the show who can't come back. Ninja tweeted, like, really racist stuff years ago. Rogan, who's, like, a male stripper that was on the show, tweeted, like, homophobic stuff. Veronica, Tina, and Rachel possibly not eligible for the challenge OG because of allegedly taking new photos of Tanya Cara. Oh, that's Cara, the other Cara, after War of the Worlds. Anyway, it's wild. But yeah, Camilla, the lady I was talking about before, she assaulted a producer and like took one of the golf carts that they were using on a joyride kind of deal. So yeah, Ninja got busted for racist stuff. What's up? Apparently God is here. Shout out to God. What up, dude? And then Potato Dre, first time chatter. What it do? Sorry, my stuff is messed up here. Anyway, we're talking about the challenge on MTV. If you guys care, I don't know how you found it, but I appreciate you doing so. Anyway, we're talking about the elimination. Kim and Colleen get eliminated in episode 5. Now, move on to the rankings. Laurel is back in the house. Laurel and Jack are back in the house. And at the end, Laurel's like, it's just good to know that somebody has my back. And then motions towards all the veterans, and all the veterans start clapping. So, yeah, she's been in the veteran lines the entire time like we all suspected. So, yeah, stupid, nonetheless. She's been trying to lie about that since she got there, and it's really weird. Anyway, shout out Potato Dre and Ivan 3_ for hopping into the show. Really appreciate it. If we stay on long enough, people show up. That's really cool. Let's talk about the rankings for the partners in this season's episode, or this episode. Here are the old bottoms. Laurel and Jack, Jay and Michelle, Darrell and Veronica, Horacio and Olivia, and Kim and Colleen. So the new bottoms for the show that I put together. Oh, my bad. New bottoms, I got Jack and Laurel still here because it is not clear where they stand in the Veteran Alliance overall. I also have Jay and Michelle, when it's all said and done. They are probably going to be target number 1 after this all shakes out. I would say that they should be in the bottom to me. Oh, man. Look at that. Potato Dre does watch. Yeah, Darrell is still in the show. He actually, your boy Darrell on the ropes right now, actually. He's been struggling. But yeah, he is partnered up with Veronica this season, who has been an OG. And they've kind of been introduced as what they call heavy hitters for this season. They don't have any power or anything like that. They just they got introduced late to the show. And that's supposed to be like some kind of benefit to them or something like that. But anyway, the new bottom 5 for this upcoming episode: Jay and Michelle, because they're enemy number 1. They're target number 1 in the house. There's no way around it. They are going to be the primary target when it's all said and done. And yeah, Darrell and Veronica, they're the easiest names to say. They've been in the last 2 eliminations, even though they've only been on the show for like a couple. They've only been on the show for 2 episodes, and they've been into the zone each one of those times. Horacio and Olivia, obviously they're high-level targets, but they've also won too many eliminations to be like a legit, like, hey, we can just go for these people and stuff like that. I think that's a big factor. Amber and Chauncey, because they're not a threat, they haven't won anything, even though, the Big Brother Alliance doesn't care for Amber all that much. Amber is the person that's rallying all the rookie competitors together for this season. That can go a long way, even though the rookies are coming, they're a little difficult to find lately. Jack and Laurel, I have them at number 7 because, like I said, we don't really know like how valuable their time is on the show. Like, we don't know how valuable they are to the Veteran Alliance. They haven't won anything, and it doesn't look like they've come even close to winning anything, which you can say the same thing about Bananas and Nani, but they have more cachet amongst the more recent vets, which, let's talk about it a little bit. The old top 5 from last week. Fessy and Mariah, Nelson and Nuri, Casey, Kenny, Devin and Tori, and then Bananas and Nani at number 5. If you haven't been keeping count at home, there are only 11 pairs left in the show. So the one pair that I do not list are perfectly in the middle, ranked 6th on the show. And I think that'll make sense here in a second. Let's talk about the new tops in this situation. So I got Fessy and Mariah because, like I said before, their alliance with Nelson and Nuri, they've won back-to-back challenges, which of course locks them in. Casey and Kenny, nobody's even talked about like what they've done. Nobody's even thought about trying to go at either one of them, which makes sense and is actually beneficial for them. Apparently, a lot of people think Casey's really boring, which I think Casey's like Kenny. Oh, you like Kenny? I do not know anything about his personality. I don't know how much social stuff he's done on the show to be appealing, but yeah, like I saw a lot of tweets about how Casey is boring to a lot of people, mainly because she's the only person that seems like a real human being most of the time when she's on the show. It doesn't seem like the house itself gets to her, mainly because she's usually on top. Like, she hasn't been in many situations where she's trying to like earn her stripes. She immediately comes in. She's probably the best like female competitor on the show in terms of athleticism overall. And many people like never go for Casey. Like, Casey, I don't think has actually been in elimination before. Devin and Tori for my 4th spot here. Their alliance doesn't look like it's super strong. We're assuming that it's Bananas and Nani, Anissa and Jordan. Anissa and Jordan are an important factor here. I think Jordan is probably the number 1 guy for this season again. He has been crazy good in a lot of these challenges. They finished in 2nd place 2 times in a row, and it's only a matter of time before they win, which is bad news for Jay and Michelle because they just put them, or tried to put them, into elimination. And that means that Bananas and Nani are my 6th ranked pair. Don't know how far with all these new faces and new names in the show, especially considering, Fessy probably wants to take out Bananas as quickly as possible because he knows the Bananas can flip up on him. Same thing with Nelson. Nelson clearly is not trying to align himself with Bananas or anything like that. And if Fessy and Nelson aren't about it, Casey's not going to be about it. And so it leaves like Devin and Tori, Anissa and Jordan, and kind of Bananas and Nani kind of like on this island, even though Nani's connected to yes, Johnny does have the most challenge wins ever, which is pretty impressive. CT actually... No, yeah, CT passed him last season because CT won he won last season with Casey, like straight up. So Johnny, that's probably why Johnny came back, to be honest with you. He came back with Nani, and he probably came back to get the win, to get the dub. So, and remain tied with a guy who is probably one of the greatest, if not the GOAT, when it comes to this whole situation. But yeah, there's a lot of people who are legendary in the challenge on this season, man. It's actually kind of wild that they got them all together. And some of them coming out of it, like when I saw Laurel, I lost my mind. Like the fact that Turbo was one of the first people eliminated in this season is insane to think about because of how good a competitor he is. But he was just kind of shitty the whole time, man. So... sorry, man. Let's see. Been watching these since I was a kid. Yeah, so during my explanation for me with the challenge, I used to watch episodes when they became the challenge. I never watched Road Rules. I knew Road Rules existed. Oh, shout out to Potato Dre for joining the bank. Giving the follow there. I appreciate that, man. But yeah, so I followed Road Rules. I never watched Road Rules because I thought it was all like reality TV drama. I thought it was a lot of talking and not a lot of actually doing things. And then the challenge came along, and I remember, man, what phase was I in? I think it was like high school. And I would just like come home and watch the challenge. And, like on Saturday nights and stuff like that, because they would run reruns all the time of the challenge, depending upon. And now I have access to streaming services or whatever, and also illegal websites that have the version of the show without the commercials after it airs and all that kind of stuff like that. But I watch every episode 3 times before I I come and do this podcast. So have a lot of fun doing it. I enjoy the show. I enjoy the drama of it. I notice something different every single time I watch a new episode. And obviously the Twitter stuff is really funny. Like most of the time I watch it, I go and look at Challenge Twitter after every episode airs, because if you look at it during, they kind of blow it a little bit. There are people who have already gone onto the internet that tweet about there are people go onto the internet that go on there to tweet out the spoilers, and so I try and drift away from that for the most part. But it's been fun, man. It's been fun. I kind of reconnected with the show during 2020 when I was locked in my house by myself, because I was watching the 3 seasons before I guess that would be starting in 2017. I was watching those seasons before the new season started. They were in full isolation. It was total madness when they were in the bunker that was underground the entire season. It was crazy. It actually affected people's mental health and all that kind of stuff, or people's health in general, not being able to get that much sunlight. So I watched this show that whole time. And then in 2020, I was like, man, the new episodes are taking too long to come out because I have to wait an entire week. So I went back and I watched the old seasons. That's how I found out that War of the Worlds and War of the Worlds 2 is just absolutely insane. And I wish they could recapture some of the wild stuff that went on during that season, because it was like very obvious. Them betraying CT is insane to me still to this day in that season. But anyway, where were we at on the show? The new top teams. So, yeah, I explained it, broke it down, all that kind of stuff. I think I'm out of stuff to talk about. I think I'm done, guys. We did the new bottoms, right? We did the new bottom pairs already. Yep. Jay and Michelle probably on the chopping block. These bottom 4 teams, I would very much expect them to be into elimination, because they're all in an alliance. And then, of course, Darrell and Veronica's name is easy to say. And if Darrell and Veronica get pulled off this board because Jordan and Anissa gain some kind of power, I don't know if that's necessarily going to happen. But if they get pulled off this board, that means that they're putting either Jack or Laurel or Bananas and Nani in, and I don't think that's going to happen. So, yeah, that's all I really got, man. I think we're done here. So shout out to Potato Dre for hopping in at the end and giving us some insight on the show, man. But yeah, season 38, Ride or Dies, is actually a lot of fun. And since you're 5 episodes behind Potato Dre, you got plenty of stuff to watch if you haven't been keeping up with this season so far. It's actually really helpful. Being behind on a lot of shows. I watch One Piece. I don't know if you watch anime or not, Potato Dre, but I watch One Piece, and it's over 1,000 episodes already, and I've learned my lesson of trying to keep up with it weekly. Like every new episode every single week doesn't do any good for you, because a lot of what One Piece does is build up like entire sections of an arc. Nice, man. Potato Dre, are you caught up? Potato Dre out here getting cooler by the second. What up, man? Like I said, but it's difficult to sit there and try and check it out every single week. I don't think that that's a feasible way for people to view One Piece. One Piece is crazy long, and the ability to watch 20 episodes in 2 days is very important to being able to get through the story, I think. I am caught up as well. There we go. We are of the few. We are the elite. We are the elite of the One Piece watch. I'm just kidding. But yeah, very few people are actually caught up on One Piece, mainly because of the thing that I said. I had to give up on the English dubs. They were taking too long. They were releasing like 10 English dub episodes a month. And I don't even think they've gotten to in the English dubs, I don't even think they've gotten to the Big Mom story yet. So I refuse to watch it. Like, I stopped doing it. I started getting into the subs. I've gotten better at watching subs. One Piece is one of the greatest animes I've ever seen, and I've watched some really good stuff. Like, I've watched, there's some seasons of Gundam that I think are amazing. I have not watched Berserk, and I need to get on that, because I've always heard Berserk is amazing as an anime, and they're finishing it up, too. I'm currently rewatching Trigun before I watched the reboot. I know Bleach is one of the best ever. I started Bleach and never finished it. A lot of people who I know watch Bleach really enjoyed it. Are really enjoying the 1,000-Year War, I believe it is. But yeah, Berserk's coming back. I don't know if they released it already or anything like that. But yeah, man. A lot of anime, man. Of course, my all-time favorite is still Speed Racer. The first one I ever watched. Speed Racer was so lit. I appreciate that, Potato Dre, man. Look, man. The joke about this show, I do a sports version of this show. So the next episode is on Wednesday, and it's a recap of the NFL season, or a recap of the NFL Week 10. And then Friday I do one where it's like all of the sports and all that kind of stuff like that. But yeah, the point of this show is to steal money from corporations. My goal, I would never want to like take, NFL, NBA, college football, talk about that, talk about MMA. My goal is to teach, or my goal is to inform every person that listens to my show in some way, shape, or form. So, there's a situation going on with the Arizona Coyotes right now, and it's a big problem for me personally. I live in Houston. Texas, and the Arizona Coyotes currently don't have an arena to play in, and a lot of people think that's innocuous and like unimportant information, except the Arizona Coyotes are the number one team that is talked about when the number one team that is talked about when Houston is supposed to get an NHL team, and that's a massive problem for me. I live closer inside than Humble, but I am like 10-15 minutes away from Humble. But yeah, straight up, that's crazy, man. That's crazy. Looks like the algorithm is working. Shout out Twitter and Twitch, cooking up connections like that. But yeah, man, the Coyotes have like they're in a college arena. They're playing in Arizona State's ice rink or whatever. And why'd you leave it? Oh, nice, dude. To Vegas. Hey, speaking of the challenge, if you hang out in the right places, you might might see some of the people from the challenge out there. I hear they like to party out there all the time, man. So I'm assuming you don't go on the strip anymore because you live in Vegas. So like you go to Old Town Vegas and stuff like that all the time. My friends went to when we were young and all that kind of stuff and had a good time. So. Yeah. No, I had a teacher of mine who I've known since I'm 30 years old, and I have a Texas history teacher that I've kept up with since 7th grade, and her name is Miss Seraphin. She used to work in Vegas, and she told us the whole deal about like we're not partying every week. We're like people who live in this city, dude. I'm like, yeah, I guess that makes sense because like you go to New Orleans and everybody fucking hates going on Bourbon Street unless you're a tourist, right? It's all about like Freeman and Seaman, or is it Freeman and Fisherman Street, or it's Freeman and Fisherman Street or some shit like that. Born and raised in LA, man. So what are your sports allegiances, Potato Dre? And I'll let you go, man. I know people got shit to do, especially at 3 o'clock in the morning. I need to go to sleep. It's not even 3 a.m. for you. It's like midnight, right? Yeah, so that's why you're up. That's why you're here. It's 3 a.m. for me here in Houston, man. So, but yeah, sports from Los Angeles. Have to wonder if you're a Raiders fan as a 35-year-old. Yeah. Okay. So Houston Rockets, Michigan Wolverines, Dallas Cowboys. Disgusting. Dallas is a bad place where bad people come from. I'm kidding. I have a lot of teammates who live in Dallas. Anyway, Houston Rockets, Michigan Wolverines. Did you go to Michigan? Is that the deal? I have a friend, Amber, who went to Michigan. So. Go Blue. Them playing Ohio State this year is going to be insane. It's going to have huge stakes. Okay, family. That's a big change from Ann Arbor, Michigan to Los Angeles. But yeah, no, it's going to be clutch, man, because it looks like they're both really good again this year. So Ohio State, Michigan's going to be huge because I think CJ. I know Stetson Bennett is probably going to end up, it should be technically winning the Heisman because his team is so fucking stacked, like ridiculously stacked. But CJ Stroud, if they beat Michigan, they'll lock up their playoff spot and they will, and he'll probably get the Heisman off of it. So that'll be huge. Michigan's been looking good though overall. Bet you they love that Michigan State sucks. They love beating up on those guys. Except in the tunnel on the way back to the locker room. They beat up on them beforehand. Anyway, but yeah, man. No, that's cool, man. That's cool. So no LA teams, huh? No Lakers, no Clippers, no Dodgers, Anaheim's not LA, but kinda. No Raiders, no Rams, no Rams love. I'm a big Bobby Wagner fan, so I'm a pseudo Rams fan for a little bit. So yeah, I think my goal. I'm not gonna buy his jersey. I have a T-shirt jersey that I work out in because I like to work out in the jerseys, not jerseys, but like I like to work out in things that are reminiscent or like inspired by great athletes because it makes me feel like I can kind of, you get a little bit of that magic going off on you a little bit while you're working out. It helps out a lot. Oh, that's cool, man. Hating LA teams, which, in the long run of professional sports, I mean, they kind of win. They win because they're not afraid to spend that money. Wow. Let's see. Trying to see something on Twitter here real quick. Oh, look at that. Tell that to the look, the Lakers have the second most titles in the history of the NBA. The Celtics are number one. They just No, wait. No. Oh no, they're tied, right? They're tied because if the Celtics had won the championship, they would have had they would have had the most. But yeah, I mean, I think Bron chose an environment for his own personal success because obviously he's been doing a lot of stuff media-wise, and, he has a podcast now that just so happens to be an HBO TV show, which would not be possible if he didn't live in LA because all the people he has on the show, they all have to go through LA in some way, shape, or form, right? But yeah, Bron showing up was at the time, it was very suspect, and it has been the worst endeavor of even, I would say his time in LA has been worse than the early Cleveland years because LA was supposed to be different, and they've actually made like terrible moves since he's been there. So, like, everybody's talking about trading Russell Westbrook. But, like, you look at the guy, and I talk about this with my friends all the time. We watch hoops. We talk about this, and it's mind-blowing, the massive list of guys that they were like, oh, we don't need you, and now they're blowing up. So, like, okay, take it from D'Angelo Russell, Josh Hart, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Zubac, right? Like, Zubac was traded from the Lakers to the Clippers, and now he's their starting center. Like, he's really good. And very good. One of the few like true centers in the game. Who else? They got rid of Alex Caruso. They got rid of Kyle Kuzma. Told him that they didn't need him. Told him to kick rocks. Getting rid of Dwight Howard. That who's a useful backup center who looks like he may or may not have completely usurped James Wiseman. Especially James Wiseman's like going down to the G League, which is interesting. But yeah, there's like a huge list of these guys that they're like, yo, we don't need you. We don't need you out here. And it's like, bro, they would kill for half of those cats to come back. It's just so weird, man. It was a choice. It was an attempt at greatness, and it looks like it's a failed attempt as of right now. Things could change drastically. Who knows, man? But look, man, if the Lakers had their picks right now, they might be trying to get Victor Wembanyama for all we know. That'd be wild as hell to get. Staying in Cleveland wasn't tenable. The owner of the team made it pretty clear both times that they are not interested in spending money to get a good team. They're willing to get rid of draft picks. They're willing to get rid of draft picks. They're willing to do everything except they're willing to do everything except spend money. They've made that really clear. They've never had a GM longer than their contract that they signed for. That's why Dan Gilbert is now with the Pelicans, right? They drafted all those guys and they traded away draft picks to get Donovan Mitchell. Everybody else has been like low-end free agent pickups, but they drafted Evan Mobley. They traded for Jared Allen. They traded for Donovan Mitchell, and they very similar to how the Pelicans were. Like the Pelicans had no interest in being like legit playoff contenders until they stumbled into a playoff quality roster, plus Zion Williamson. Yeah, it's the Cleveland Cavaliers weren't interested in playing basketball the way that LeBron wanted to, in terms of getting veterans and using the veterans to win the championship now. Whereas like the Cavaliers have put themselves on a path to be a real contender in like 4 years. Like right now they're doing well, but is it sustainable? We'll find out. True, but the Lakers aren't the same Lakers. The Lakers have been run into the ground. The Lakers have been run into the ground, and there's not a way out for them right now. That's the wild part. We always talk about how they used to be the destination. And I think LA, of course, is a destination. One, because LA produces a lot of great basketball players. Two, because the environment that is LA, whether it be because of the weather and the environment or the media and stuff like that, that's really important. But it's as a basketball team, still it's the better team in town, even though the Clippers have been better than the Lakers for a while now, right? It's still the better team in town. Their management is, the management isn't championship caliber anymore, and it makes you wonder. Sometimes it makes you wonder, was it all on purpose? Just the fact that they're not, they went out and they got Anthony Davis, which is huge for them. They went out and they got nobody else essentially. They went out and got Russ and thought that was going to work, and it hasn't. Once they get past this Russ situation, they'll have a lot more cap space to be able to make some more moves. But it's the question of, like, do you keep making moves? Like, how much time is left for LeBron James for you to be like, we're going to make moves? Because now you could argue that this is the quote-unquote weakest LeBron James that has ever existed, because he's another year older. So he's going to need more help than he's had in years past. And he's had Hall of Fame teammates, you know what I mean? And this roster, Lonnie Walker the fourth, probably not going to get it done, my guy. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. Anyway, I'll talk about that more on Friday. Wednesday, talking all NFL. So if you're a football guy, Potato Dre, come through. Thanks for following, man. I really appreciate that. Welcome to the bank. And of course, this podcast is just like every other podcast that exists. It is a long con to get a $100 million contract from Spotify and then immediately stop doing this show. So it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun. On that note, it's almost 4:00 in the morning for me. It's time for you, boy, to go to sleep. Time for me to get out of here. Yep. I appreciate everybody who listened to the challenge portion of it. Shout out to Potato Dre for sliding through. Apparently God showed up at some point during the show. Didn't see that until way later. Very nice to meet you. Very nice to hang out with you guys. I will be back on Wednesday to talk about all things NFL. Hit me up on Twitter at FB_playbook. Hit me up on Instagram at @TheAshtonForever. That's my TikTok handle as well. Don't forget to also, if you're interested in the things that I tweet out about in my personal life, hit me up on Twitter at @TheAshtonJ. If you're interested in listening to when the pod goes live, @BrokeBoyPod is the Twitter account that you seek. It only tweets out when the show goes live. And only tweets out the links to the YouTube and Twitch. That's pretty much it. All right. I'm out. Go to sleep. Remember, wash your hands, wash your ass, drink water, be kind and do good, as Mr. Feeney would say.